Good morning, ladies. Welcome to Growing Together in Grace. I'm Cathy.
I'm Ellen.
And we are so glad you are here with us today. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about our first year of marriage.
So long ago for me.
Yeah, almost 30 years for you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going on, I believe, 16 or 17. It was 2007.
I know you were like 2007.
It's like I know I graduated from high school in 2005, and then we were married 2 years later.
Got it.
That I know.
Yeah.
Anyway, all of this to say, before we jump into our discussion on our first year of marriage, Ellen.
Yes, ma'am.
Why don't you give us some real life talk? Tell us what your plans are for today.
Oh, today I actually we have a period because it's morning here. Mm-hmm. So we have a period after we leave your house where we have some time off, but the US plays soccer, so I pretty much know what my husband is going to be watching this afternoon, and probably our oldest son is going to be coming to our house to watch the USA versus. And don't even ask me who we're playing because I have no clue.
Okay.
But he'll probably spend the time watching soccer. And then this evening, we have our first care group meeting for the year.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about that. This is one of the aspects that I missed when we left our other church. And we did go to the care group meetings that they were having when we first joined, but then we take a break in the summertime just because it's a lot of younger families and people are on vacation and stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's really hard to do a care group in the summertime. Yeah. So we just resumed that this month.
Okay.
And I want to say it's maybe once or twice a month.
Okay.
But I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, we're having discussion, I believe, that our pastor said. We're talking about showing kindness to other people, to others when in a very chaotic world.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to this discussion and what we're going to be talking about at Care Group tonight. So
that's cool.
Yeah. What about you?
Shortly after you guys leave, Chad and Ellen came over for breakfast this morning.
By the way, it was yummy.
Yeah, it was. Thanks for bringing the delicious fruit too.
Yes, ma'am.
And the homemade salsa and chips. Anyway, in a little bit, Jason's parents will be here in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. And we're going to carve pumpkins with them.
Oh, how fun.
And then Joshua has a double header this evening. So we will be at the baseball field for 5 million years.
The same baseball field, right?
Yeah. Actually, no, we switched leagues because Joshua outgrew the league that's near you.
Okay.
He's in a different league this year because they had his age group. So we'll be doing that today.
So where is that at?
First Colony Little League right off Austin Parkway.
Oh, okay. Oh.
So
is that closer for y'all then?
No. Missouri City, it's 5 minutes for us. Oh. First Colony is 18 minutes.
Okay. Well, but that'll be fun. Grandma and Grandpa get to see his games. That's always so cool when grandparents go to games.
Yes.
My kids enjoyed that so much when we had grandparents come because I felt like they performed better. Oh, Nana and Papa here, Lula and Lulu here. Yeah. Hey, Lula and Lulu are the names that my kids call my parents, the Filipino names for Grandma and Grandpa. But they would just get so excited when they would come and watch them.
That's fun.
I can't wait for that for my granddaughter. I'm so excited. Anyways, what about you? Besides that, that's it?
I would say.
I said, what about you? You were sitting here telling me, sorry, it's the morning. I haven't finished my coffee yet.
Listen, what you all don't know is it took us 8 minutes.
Because we were just laughing hysterically.
All kinds of things were going wrong and happening.
She almost spilled coffee. We had to switch headsets.
It was a whole thing.
Yeah. So anyways.
Give us grace is what we're saying.
Please. But
yeah, and then we'll probably come home and have tomorrow will probably be a relaxing day.
Okay.
Today's a busier day because once Monday hits, theoretically the report we get back on the house that we're in a contract isn't too bad and we can go forward with this house, which will mean packing and cleaning and getting ready to sell and all the things.
How fun. So how long is Jason's parents staying?
They'll be here just for the day.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We talked about them spending the night and going to church with us on Sunday, but Jason's grandma is not feeling too great, and so they want to get back just in case she needs them. Anyway, let's jump into our marriage discussion.
Yes.
So some of the questions are so simple, but I thought it would be great to have a little bit of background info.
Yeah.
And this is just about the first year of our marriage.
Yeah.
And so, Ellen, I wanted to ask you a couple questions, and then you can relay them back to me.
Yes.
How old were you when you were married? Where were you living when you first were married?
Mm-hmm.
And were you both believers when you got married?
Okay. So when we were married, it was 6 days after I turned 19.
Okay.
So it was a baby, and then my husband was 21. We were high school sweethearts. We had already been dating for 4 years and then engaged literally like a year. And then we were married. And so for me to get married that young, and I mean, like, Asian culture, you need to finish school, you need to get, a career. It was very hard to convince my parents for us to get married. But we got married. We were pretty young, which is why it'll be 30 years, July 2nd. It was the year after I graduated from high school. So we were pretty young. A lot of people were like, whoa, y'all are so young getting married. And in fact, sadly, there was a lot of people that were like, there's no way y'all are going to make it.
I hear that.
Anyways, 30 years later, so Chad proposed to me. Right after he proposed to me, his parents had already moved to Phoenix.
Okay.
Because my father-in-law he was a paralegal. He moved with the lawyer that he was working with. And the lawyer that he was working with got a job with a firm out there in Phoenix. So they had been living there for a year. He stayed here for a year while I finished up high school. And then just through different circumstances, he felt like it was better for him to move to Phoenix with his parents. But before he moved, he proposed to me. So right after we got married, literally, I'm not kidding you, the day that we left for our honeymoon, the car was packed in the U-Haul. His parents and his brothers drove the U-Haul with all of my stuff in it to Phoenix while we went on our honeymoon. And I literally moved out there right after we had our honeymoon. Like, I didn't even come back home.
Wow. We
lived in Phoenix for 3 years. That was where Austin was born. But our first year of marriage, we lived out there. And let me tell you, the environment, living in a place where it's humid and it's hot, to going to a very hot place, the desert, and it's very dry. My skin was like, what in the world? Like, I have never been in such heat, to the point, like, if you get out of the pool, you had to put water down on the concrete. Otherwise your feet would burn.
Wow.
Getting into the car, windows weren't tinted, I had to cover up my steering wheel because my fingertips burned touching the steering wheel. That's how hot it was.
Wow.
And experiencing your first dust storm, that was crazy. And then let's see. Yes, we were believers. He accepted Christ when he was a teenager during revival at his church, and then my husband was the one that led me to the Lord when I was 17, and then a couple of years later, I got baptized.
Okay.
So yes, we were believers. We both grew up going to church. We were both pretty involved in our churches. And then when I moved out to Phoenix, he had already been a part of a church it's in Scottsdale. It's a suburb out in Phoenix called Scottsdale. And that was our first church that we attended for the first 3 years of our marriage.
Okay.
Was out there. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Well, what about you? How old were you when you were married? Where were you living? And were you both believers?
So Jason and I were also high school sweethearts.
Mm-hmm.
And we were also married young. I'm older than Jason.
By like 2 years?
2 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not quite 2, but I say 2. Because his birthday falls in the summer and I'm in the fall. And so there's a period of time where I am 2 years older than him.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we were married in June.
Mm-hmm.
His birthday is in July. So he was 18 when we got married and I was 21. Maybe he was 19. No, he couldn't have been 19 because I don't know if I shared this.
Yes, you had to call him.
I had to call the
that's
hotel
a funny story.
and make reservations for our honeymoon.
Because he wasn't old enough,
Yes.
right?
Although I think I was going to have to call, and then I think that he ended up telling the person he was on the phone with, if I remember the story correctly, because I was in the room when it happened, and it's been 17 years.
Yeah.
He ended up saying I'll be 19 in July, and it's like, okay, either I had to pay with my own card, something I had to do something.
Yeah.
But I still give him. I joke about that with him. It's like, I'm so sorry, you're such a baby. So I was 21 because we were married in the summer, and I turned 22 that year, though.
Okay.
Our first year of marriage, we were married in college, and so we were still attending Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, which is a very small college town.
Okay.
The very southern tip of Illinois.
Okay.
And so we were living there, and we lived in a very small duplex away from campus because we didn't want, we wanted our lives to start off like we don't want to be so wrapped up in the college environment and life.
Yeah.
So we called it Lakeland. Lakeland was the church that we attended, and I'll say that in just a second. But there were quite a few Lakeland married couples or singles that lived in this apartment complex.
Oh, okay.
So it was kind of like almost like a small care group all living in the same apartment complex. It was pretty cool.
That's cool.
It was a sweet season of our life.
Yeah.
So that's where we lived our first year.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, we were both believers. Jason, I'm pretty sure he was 6 when he came to know the Lord and was baptized. And then I was 16. And so we were already pretty involved at Lakeland Baptist Church before we got married. And then even after we got married, we jumped right in and served in the youth ministry. And then Jason was doing music ministry as well.
Okay.
So cool. All right, then, Ellen.
Yes,
so we talked a little bit about church, but let's just go ahead and add more to it. What church did you attend your first year of marriage? Mm-hmm. Did you serve in the church together your first year of your marriage? And if so, what were your different roles?
Okay.
And let's tag on questions 4 through 7. Did you seek out an older married couple in your church to mentor and disciple you? Mm-hmm. If so, share. If not, share. Because there's reasons why people are afraid to do that. Did you surround yourself with godly friendships in your first year of marriage?
Okay. So question number, and I'll refer back to them because I'm like, wait, what question? So the first church that we attended as a married couple for the first 2 years of our marriage, I want to say, was First Baptist Church of Scottsdale.
Okay. Was it a big church?
It was a medium-sized church, I would say. Maybe 300 people.
Okay.
Maybe around there. And so, and my in-laws went there, and Chad had already been going there, so he knew a lot of the people. So if I remember correctly, and again, it's been a minute, there was not a lot of younger couples. They were like people that had been married for several years, maybe like 7 or 8 years plus, and then to your like older couples. So we were a part of a group, a Sunday school group, but they were older than we were. Like they were already established in their careers. They had a couple of kids that were maybe like preschool, school age children. And so there really wasn't a lot of couples our age, except for, and this is a weird story within itself, my brother-in-law's sister and her husband.
Okay.
So my brother-in-law married his sister-in-law's youngest sister. Like it's a whole new different story there. But they were probably the closest to our age at the time, and they had a baby. Okay. Their oldest was just a baby then. And so we went there for the first 2 years, and then our third year we moved to another church that was actually closer to us, because driving to the church that we were going to was, we had moved into an apartment and it was like a 35-minute drive for us. Because in Phoenix, there really wasn't a lot of freeways. So you're just driving road. That was a long drive for us. Then I got pregnant, and then the church that we started going to, the first, I can't remember the name of it. It was a great Hillside Baptist Church, I think. There were a lot of young couples there.
Oh, okay.
And we had a great Sunday school class. They were all our age. We all had babies, the same age. And our Sunday school teachers, they were just so wonderful and instrumental in ministering to all of us that were young couples. Like I specifically remember just the sweet times that we had in Sunday school class, and even all of the ladies as being pregnant. And baby dedication was funny because there was like 5 or 6 babies that got dedicated because we all had our babies about the same time. So I love being a part of that church, and just the ministry part. But so like, let's see, 5. Did you serve? Yes. So for Southern Scottsdale, my husband did sound.
Okay.
He started doing the sound there. He worked the sound booth. I sang in the choir.
Okay.
And there were times where we helped out with the youth group.
Okay.
So that was at First Baptist Church of Scottsdale. For Hillside, I actually helped with the nursery. I helped. I watched the babies in nursery, but then I was more involved with just Sunday school class in general. I don't recall we had a choir at Hillside. But I did a lot of nursery. I worked the nursery a lot because Austin was still a baby then. Yeah. So really, a sang in choir. I helped out with the youth at our first church, and then really the nursery when we moved to our other church before we moved back to Texas.
And Chad always just stayed doing sound.
He did sound. I don't believe he did it when we moved to Hillside.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. But he did it at Scottsdale. I think maybe Chad might have helped with sound sometimes.
So would you say that? No, not would you say. So you did sound, or he did sound. Mm-hmm. You did music, mm-hmm. and serving in the youth and nursery. Mm-hmm. Now, in both churches that you attended when you guys were living in Arizona, mm-hmm. Did you guys have older men and women, couples pouring into you and mentoring and discipling you? And if you didn't, do you wish you had? And did you feel like you had a good group of godly friendships, couple friendships, mm-hmm. who encouraged you and challenged you in your faith?
So at Scottsdale, there were older couples. Not saying that they weren't mentoring us, because they were very loving, and they knew that when we came, we were newlyweds. Yeah. So, but as far as like mentoring us, we didn't necessarily have people that were mentoring us. And there were times where I just kind of felt a little bit out of place, because I was like, God, we're just young. We were newly married and young, and a lot of the people were older than us. Mm-hmm. So as far as like mentoring, not really at our first church, but our second church, yes. Okay. Our Sunday, we were specifically in the young marrieds class at Scottsdale. There wasn't a young marrieds class. Okay. It was just a couples class. And again, they were older. But at Hillside, we just had the most wonderful, we had a married couple, and they loved on all of the young couples that were in there. And a lot of us worked at the same place. So we knew each other from work, and then we all attended the same church. And we were all in the same stages of life. We knew each other from work. So there was some, and then even some of the people one couple that went there, Chad knew from when they lived here in Houston, because they moved out to Phoenix as well. And so he knew the girl because he grew up with her in church here. So there was like lots of different connections, and we knew each other. And there were times where we did do a lot of stuff together. Like we'd eat lunch after church, or even like dinner with one couple or another. One couple that we were particularly close to, we both worked at the same place. And then we had our babies. She had a girl, I had a boy. They were like 5 days apart. Austin and her daughter were 5 days apart. Now, I do have to say now, there are some couples that have gotten a divorce that were in our Sunday school class that we were close to. And it just made me so sad to think about. There's probably 3 couples that I know off the top of my head that have since gotten a divorce from that church that we've been a part of. And it just makes me sad because I remember going through the different walks and stages with them in our young married life. And just to think now that they're not married anymore, it's like, whoa. You know, you ask that question in that generation. I'm like, well, some of those couples are already divorced. They've been divorced for a while. Maybe within the last 10 years, which makes me sad because I have so many fond memories of our last church that we were in before we moved here, where I just felt like I was being ministered to. We did have close-knit group of friends because we were all going through that same stage in life. Yeah. Well, what about you?
So for me, my husband and I, after we got married, we attended the church that we were going to pre-marriage. It's actually a small Southern Baptist church in Carbondale called Lakeland Baptist Church. My dad is the pastor there, actually. And when we got married, people actually asked, "Are you guys going to look for a different church?"
Yeah, because I was thinking, like, how dynamic is that, though?
But I was like, I can't. My dad, he's an expository preacher. Like he has like this passion for the Lord and preaches the gospel and goes through a book of the Bible and it's verse by verse. But the way that he preaches it, it's like, because you've seen some pastors like be so zoned in like this, right? No, not my dad. Like he spends so much time pouring over the scripture that God that he's preaching. Like he's off the pulpit. Like sometimes you're like, move stuff out of his way.
Oh,
like,
now I know where you get it from.
He's very much an extrovert.
Yeah.
And so we stayed there for a couple of reasons. One, the teaching was so good. Two, my husband was already serving pretty seriously on the music ministry team. And you know Jason.
Yes.
That's his gift. That's his calling. And one of his best friends was the main worship guy, and he was like the side guy. And so I knew that that's where we'd land. And my best friend was there too. Like, this is silly. We're not going to.
Yeah. If you're established, you're already established.
Yeah. We loved it. Yeah. We were family. One of the, I was being discipled and mentored. The college ministry was incredible. Like, just incredible. It was a sweet season, like a sweet season that I look back on with such wonderful memories.
Yeah.
So loved it so much. Did we serve? Yes. My husband did music ministry. Together, we served along with 2 other dear, precious friends of ours, 2 other couples. We all served in the youth ministry together, and it was just a special season.
Yeah.
I also served in the nursery, which, you know me, I have a heart for children.
Yeah.
And so that was something I did. I was also a part of the welcoming and hospitality committee.
Big surprise there.
So it was greeting people and inviting people and creating the hospitality events,
Yeah.
So yes, those were our different roles.
Okay.
There were times where we would just have spontaneous care group types of events within our little duplex and our parties and stuff like that.
That's cool.
So that's question 5. Question 6, did we seek out an older married couple in our church? So we didn't actually seek anyone out, but a couple saw us.
Oh, that's cool.
I might tear up, actually. That's funny because I started to feel right before you cry, you feel that ting in your heart. The wife is no longer living. She died of breast cancer. Was it pancreatic? She died of cancer several years ago. They were the college Sunday school teachers.
Yeah.
And they had just an incredible heart for people. Their home was always
That's
open.
cool.
Always open. No matter the day or the time. You could walk up to their door, knock on the door, and just cry. And Jenna, she would just hug you and pray right then and there.
Yeah.
And they had cookouts every night. In fact, they are the I may have shared this a long time ago when we first met. So I grew up in a teetotaling family. My dad does not drink. He would not say that it is a sin to drink. He would say it is a sin to be drunk.
Yeah.
But he would make the argument to just don't even do it.
Yeah.
So I grew up that way. Well, our Sunday school teacher, Corey, they had us over one Friday. They had 3 children. Yeah. Little, like 5, 3, and 2 or so. Anyway, they invited us to a cookout and we show up and he's back in the backyard grilling hamburgers. And I go back there with Jason to say hi. And he's drinking a Bud Light or something. I forget. I was like, oh, Corey, you're drinking. Yeah. And he was like, yeah. I was like, oh, you can't do that. And he's like, why? I was like, because. He's like, because why? I'm like, because my dad told me you can't. He's like, I need a better reason. If you can show me in scripture where it says it's wrong to drink, let's talk. And I was like, I don't really know what I believe about drinking. And so, and Jason also grew up in a teetotaling family. And so because of Corey, he got us thinking a lot about alcohol. And what does scripture really teach about it? And so,
which is a hot topic for some people.
It is a hot topic.
Yeah.
So it was one of the big things we loved about Corey and Jenna and still do is
challenges you.
They challenged us. They weren't afraid to have the hard conversations.
Yeah, which I love.
Yes.
Because unfortunately in a lot of churches today, you grow up thinking a certain way.
Yeah.
Because there's not really any challenge. Yeah. Anyways, I don't want to go on the Benny wall.
Not only that, if you there are some church cultures where if you disagree, you're kicked out immediately.
Yeah.
Or there's no room for disagreement, which is crazy to me because we should be able to come together and disagree.
To agree to disagree.
And challenge each other.
Exactly.
Let's talk about this and let's think through this and let's go to the word and see what scripture teaches.
I think that's great that you guys had that early.
They were so amazing. Anyway, they, for the most part, discipled us married couple to married couple. But I also had a lady who was much further along in her life. In fact, her youngest kid was my age. So she was probably in her 40s.
Okay.
But she gravitated towards me and we started meeting together pretty regularly for coffee and she would pour into my life. Her name is Lisa. She's still precious and has a heart for the Lord. So I was fortunate and I praise God for this that we had Corey and Jenna and that I had Lisa speaking into my life and encouraging me. Now, as far as godly friendships, we were also incredibly blessed which is why I believe it was really hard for me the first few years when we moved to Texas.
Oh, yeah.
When we first got married, there was a good core group of young married couples at our church who were like loved Jesus.
Yeah.
And loved God and loved people and had a heart for ministry. And that's our passion. And so we were surrounded by that, not only at church, but several of us lived in the same duplex area.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it was like every month, but it may not have been. We would gather together at one of our houses and have a big old cookout potluck style meal. And sometimes there were times where we would all just pray and cry and weep for one another, and we would sing hymns. It was like my first real thought of, this is care group. This is how care group should be. Sweet times. And that whole group of people, we would have costume parties at Halloween, Christmas, White Elephant. It just fun. It was so special. And we also, our church had a softball team in the summer. So
we did too.
It was so fun.
We did with our first church, and I think we did with our second church too.
It was so fun.
That was fun.
Such a special.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm like, I forgot.
It was a special season.
Yeah, that's cool.
So, and when we moved here, I didn't have, there weren't many young couples at the church that we first joined. So that, I believe that was part of why it was so hard.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, definitely.
Okay. So, I'm trying to see, we might have to break this episode up into two because look how many questions I have.
Ooh.
Okay. So let's jump. Maybe not. We may be able to skip some or combine some. Sorry, y'all. I'm trying to make sure. I didn't even see when we started this episode.
I know it took us 7 minutes, but girl, I don't know.
So I'm trying to pay attention. Have you get out your calculator?
Maybe it's like 10:45 or something like that, I think.
So we're trying to be gracious towards you all, not give you like 4 hours of listening. But it's great discussion.
Yeah.
So I could talk all day about this. So now that we've kind of established like the backbone of our first year of marriage, like the churches that we went to, the people that were in our lives, and stuff like that. Let's start talking about the personal stuff. If some of these questions might be too hard for you, you can say like, that's going to be too hard for me to discuss.
Yeah.
You totally have the freedom to do that.
Yeah.
So question 8, was your first year of marriage hard? And I'm going to combine this one. And if that is the case, what were the challenges that you faced together as a married couple?
I really had to think about this question, and honestly,
I'm listening. My phone is thinking.
You're fine. There's probably one aspect that I probably won't really discuss, but was a major problem in our maybe first year of marriage. But probably one of the biggest challenges I think I had was, what was hard was, first of all, living together, trying to figure out like each other's different quirks and like who likes to sleep on this side of the bed. My feelings might get hurt about something that Chad might have thought was like minor. I had a lot of health issues my first year of marriage. And in fact, when I was a little girl, this is like what I had when I was a little girl and I had to have surgery. Well, I had to have a couple of procedures with this health issue that I was having. And that was kind of putting stress on our marriage a little bit, like with intimacy. And also we struggled with our finances. Neither one of us really grew up in a home where you were taught to have a budget. I was the only girl, and so there were times where I got what I wanted if I begged enough. And so I thought that was okay in my marriage. And so, you know, I wanted a bigger apartment. So we moved into a bigger apartment 6 months after we moved into our small apartment. We moved out and we really honestly couldn't afford that apartment. But we weren't even thinking about finances. It was like, I want. So those were some of the struggles in our marriage, was that it was hard because of the health issues that I was having, the intimacy part, and then also with our finances. We were just horrible. Then not sitting down and having a budget and then buying things we probably had no business of buying because we didn't have the money to do it. And so that put a financial strain on our marriage. And then combined with second year we were married, I'm finding out I'm pregnant and I'm like, oh my God, we have a baby. We can't afford a baby. And just dealing with that, you know, so like our first year of marriage was hard because, you know, this is why when we're discussing this book that I read, these were things that we should have had discussions about: finances, intimacy before we got married, because that was like some major challenges in our marriage. So it was hard. Our marriage was hard probably the first 5-6 years of our marriage was hard. Yeah. And our finances were the biggest issue with us. But anyways, like, what about you? What were some of the challenges that you faced, and was your first year of marriage difficult?
Yes.
I think we could barely say yes. Yeah.
A lot of similar response. Jason and I didn't really ever learn how to budget well, which is ironic because Jason grew up in a home where his dad and mom kept to the budget pretty tightly. Yeah. And were super wise with their money. But as far as I know, he didn't really have any kind of education or wasn't really taught how to be wise and responsible with his money. Yeah. And the only thing that I was really taught in my life, in my home, was how to I don't even know what it's called now. How to write your checks and make sure
checks and balances.
Yeah.
Balancing a checkbook.
Yeah. How to do that. That's what I was taught. And was encouraged to tithe. 10%. Those are the two things that I remember. But I grew up I kind of grew up in a family, I grew up in a minister's family. So obviously there's not before I was adopted, I grew up in a very poor welfare family and super irresponsible with money that we did get and spent it all on junk that you don't need. And then after I was adopted, it was, we would buy things that we probably my parents were great. They wanted to bless us with good things. And so they would, but sometimes they would bless more. Sometimes there were years that we probably should have held back on that and figured out, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, totally get what you're saying.
All of that to say, and then I also grew up in a family where you went to college.
Yes.
And with that, and so did my husband. With that mindset, once we got married, we're like, well, we got to go to college because that's what we're told to do. Get this degree. Well, we don't have the money. Now, we did have some scholarships until our last year. Okay. But our last year, I think scholarships stopped at halfway. And so we pulled out loans to finish college. And I wish for the life of me that we would have said no. I would have stepped out of college and worked to put him through and finish. Yeah. And then maybe that's not what happened. And that was, like you said, one of our biggest conflicts in our marriage was our college debt. And I was just so frustrated about it. We're never going to get out of it. This is going to follow us for the rest of our life. Yeah. So frustrated about it. So that was the one big aspect of it. Intimacy, not so much. And that's just because at that time we both were very physical touch people. Yeah. Super physical. Which is why we moved our wedding up. If you follow along and you see that and hear that in our engagement podcast, we had to move our wedding up. Yeah. So that wasn't a problem. so finances were a big hard conflict we had to work through, and then communicating during conflict.
Oh yeah.
I said this in this episode briefly. Jason grew up in a family where you dealt with the conflict head on. I grew up in a family I grew up in two families. The first family, you beat the person.
Yeah.
Well, obviously that's not happening.
Right.
Or the second thing, you ignore the problem.
Yeah.
So complete polar opposites, right?
Yeah.
So my natural instinct is to run and hide and not deal with the conflict.
Yeah.
And to pretend everything's okay and like let the other person have. And so the first few years of our marriage, whenever we were in conflict, Jason would want to deal with it immediately, and it would make me so angry because I'm like, I don't want to talk. Like, I really don't want to talk. Leave me alone. So, and because of that aspect of my family and this aspect of my family where you get mad and angry, throw things. I would throw things at him and yell awful words towards him in the first few words of our marriage. I did
the same thing. Yeah.
We've talked about this. So those were the hard things that we had to push through and work through the first few years of our marriages.
Yeah.
Finances and learning how to budget. And be smart with our money. And then how to handle conflict. Those are two big things for our marriage.
Yeah. Oof.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Those first few years though were they were really hard.
Yes.
But I will say, I don't know if this is true for you. I will say those first few years really made Jason and I really press more into the Lord and be like, God, like, I love this person. I'm committed to this person. Help me. Like, humble me. Convict me of my sin. Show me where I need to show grace and where I need to forgive and where I need to grow. And so that's really how God worked. And I think that's why we are where we are now, 17 years later of like.
And sometimes it takes you longer to get there. It took us way longer to get there.
Yeah.
But I love, you're so right. Because sometimes the Lord brings us through very difficult things through our marriage. And it could be different stages in your marriage, like you've been married for a couple of years or mid-year, where the Lord just takes some very difficult things to make you stronger as a couple. And definitely.
Yeah. All right. So now that we've talked about the hard stuff,
the hard stuff,
what are some of your best or favorite memories your first year of marriage?
Oh, goodness. Wow. I love the feeling of being married to somebody that I know loves me for me, and who I knew loved me for me. I could remember because at one time we're together at one point, a couple of years after we got married. But like when we first got married, I was nannying. And then he was working for the company that I started working for a couple of years later. We lived on the second floor apartment complex, and I remember I would just stand out on the front of our patio, and I would just kind of stand there and wait for him to tell me, okay, y'all, I'm dating myself. So when we had beepers back then. She's laughing at me now. We had beepers. Yeah. So like, there was a way, I think if I recall, I would call him and I would relay my message and he would get it through his beeper. And, he would call me landline, no cell phones back then, and say, yeah, I'm on my way home. Maybe I'll be there in like 15 or 20 minutes, and just waiting there for him to get home, and just like, watch him drive in and just remembering that, oh, my husband is home. Husband, sometimes with the disbelief of that. But just, I remember those times. And even just funny situations where, because his parents lived out in Phoenix. So like, just, I'm still getting to know his whole family. And so like, just getting to know my brother-in-laws and my mother and father-in-law, and like we would do dinner a lot of times. A lot of times after church, we were going to First Baptist Church of Scottsdale, First Southern Baptist Church of Scottsdale. We would go over to their house and eat Sunday lunch. And so those were some of the like precious times that we got to spend with his family, and just like being able to spend some of that time together. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I remember some of those memories, and watching him go playing in the church softball leagues. Yes. It's so funny. It's so fun. I was really never a sports person, but like getting to watch him and cheering for him, those were some fun times. Yeah. Yeah. What about you? What were some of the best memories?
I would definitely say softball. Mm-hmm. Jason would like to pride himself in thinking he was like the home run hitter on our softball team. It's like, you do that. You're okay.
Sure, honey.
And just the special time we had with what I would call our first care group.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just so many precious memories there. Mm-hmm. And our first year of marriage, we were pretty involved at our church too.
Yeah.
And that was special. Cool. I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure our first year of marriage, one of our best friends from high school got married, and he was in his wedding.
Yeah.
And then another college roommate of his got married in Florida, and he was in his wedding. And so the first year we were in a lot of people's weddings and traveling and celebrating marriage. So that was fun because we got to go to Panama City, Florida that year. So that was our first year vacation, which was super fun. Fun. But yeah, it was even though there were some hard moments, there were some special moments sprinkled in there.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, best memories. God, of course, that was 30 years for me. So
okay, so this is kind of going back to what we were talking just a moment ago. So during the your first year marriage, obviously we didn't want to continue in the hard and the conflict, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we don't want to be here. We don't want to be stuck here.
Yeah.
So what are some things you did or worked through or knew like we've got to get to this point to get past this? What are some things you did to help encourage your marriage into a healthy spot, healthy place? And maybe you didn't. Maybe it took a few years, and that does happen.
So I was looking at that question before you asked it, and honestly, the first 10 years were such a struggle that I don't think that we got to that point yet. It was much later in our married life, maybe because after we lived in Phoenix, we moved back to Texas, but we lived in Fort Worth.
Okay.
And so again, we're struggling financially. I was a stay-at-home mom, but I probably should have worked because with Chad just working, or even just had a better budget. Like, we struggled with that. I don't think we really realized some things, and we had to go through some pretty tough things to finally realize we need to have this discussion in our marriage. And it wasn't until we actually moved back here that we had those hard conversations. Yeah. Because he was in ministry. There was some things that he was dealing with internally. And then there was some things that we just never really addressed, that we were struggling with at the beginning of our marriage that we had to address. And it was a really rough conversation. And I would, in fact, even venture to say that was one of the toughest things that we had to go through. Mm. We served in ministry together. We lived in a completely different state. That definitely brought us closer. Was our marriage better? Yes. However, there was some things that we still had to work on, and we didn't until we moved back here. It's been now, how old is Andrew? He's 19, 17 years ago that we moved back here, to where our marriage just drew so much closer. Mm-hmm. We discussed those issues. I would say even now in the last 5 years, 25 years of marriage, where our marriage is so strong, and I feel like we have these discussions. We're able to have these discussions now. And And it took that long because the Lord had to work on my heart and had to work on his heart.
Mm-hmm.
And so we didn't have those discussions early on in our marriage that we probably should have, just because I think even our walk with the Lord was a big factor in that. Like we really, yes, we were a part of a church. Yes, we were serving in the church, but were we truly growing in the Lord, and was our faith growing? Not necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that was a factor that we needed to also take care of.
Mm-hmm.
And because of our walk with the Lord now is stronger, that's also improved our marriage.
Praise God.
25 years later.
Hey.
Yeah.
Like, praise God though.
Yeah, but
the
people,
word.
exactly. And it can take that long.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying, you may have issues in your marriage at the beginning, and maybe it'll take you sooner to get through those. But like for us, 25 years. 25 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, what about you, my friend?
So I will definitely say we didn't figure out anything in the first year of our marriage.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody really does.
To be fair, we're still learning things.
Yes,
17 years later.
Exactly. You so are, because you change as a person too.
Yeah,
Realize that.
You do. You really do.
Yeah.
I will say for us, similar, I would say the first 5 years were probably the hardest.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like after 5, by God's grace, things started to settle.
Yeah.
And we really started to figure out our who we are as a couple, who we are as God's children, what our marriage is going to be, those kinds of things. And that came about because of the hard, finances really were a constant fight for us. And then I got pregnant unexpectedly with our oldest. And I was like you. I'm like, Lord, what are you doing?
Yeah. I'm not ready for a baby.
We have no money. Literally no money.
Yeah. I remember you telling me how much y'all were making combined. I'm like, oh my word.
We're poor. We owe money to the college.
Yeah.
We can't do this. There's no way we can do this.
Yeah.
We just can't.
Yeah.
But I kept being reminded, no, this life is created in God's image and for a purpose. And I have a plan. Trust me. I kept clinging to that. Even though there were seasons of Lord, I'm going to have to admit, I'm struggling trusting you right now.
Yeah.
But this is a gift and I know it and it's a blessing.
Yeah.
But after I had Joshua, I know for a fact that I had postpartum depression.
Yeah.
Severe.
I remember you sharing that.
But I was too prideful to admit that I needed help and I needed to go in and get checked out. I was too prideful. I'm like, no, I'm a Christian.
Fine. Yeah.
I'm a Christian and Christians don't struggle with depression.
Yeah.
Stupid. Sorry, that's a little tangent I'm about to go on, but I won't go there.
Don't pull the mic.
And in that season, we just moved to Texas. So I knew nobody.
Yeah, with a
baby, severely depressed, no friends, nobody.
Yeah.
And I was struggling with so much sadness.
Yeah.
That sadness turned into anger, and my anger seeped out into my life, mostly towards my husband, because that's who I knew the best.
Mm-hmm.
And so that just created a really difficult season. But by God's grace, the church that we ended up landing at, even though I did not want to go to that church, I kept saying, no, I don't want to go here. I don't think this is where we're supposed to be. I want to go here. But my husband really felt that God was leading us to this church.
Yeah.
And I trusted him. Our pastor at the time, and I'm pretty sure he still does this. He takes young men under his wing and disciples them for about a year and spends time with them. Yeah. And so he started discipling Jason and spending time with him. And that really grew Jason in an incredible way as a person and as a spouse. Yeah. Which he really started to really love me well. Not that he didn't before, but this was different. Yeah. And so that started the process of him being mentored and discipled. And I'm pretty sure that's where our marriage changed, because right after our pastor was done discipling and mentoring him. Another incredible man who we just love, and I tell him this every time I see him.
Yeah.
He went to our old church. He went through a really ugly divorce. And he took what he learned from that and kind of started his own ministry of encouraging brothers in Christ.
I love that.
Like in their marriage.
Yeah.
And in their walk with the Lord. And he uses some of his own like fault and weakness as a husband and is like, just like, hey, brother. And so,
yeah.
For years, he and my husband would have breakfast once a week, and he would pour into Jason and teach him and encourage him.
We need that so much. I have a heart for that. That's
it's
so
why
cool.
I truly believe that there's a lot of commands throughout Scripture where he says older women teach the younger women, older men teach. I really believe that God knew we needed the wisdom from those who've gone before us.
Yes, so true.
Anyway, I say that to say our first year was just, it was awful. It was hard. There were some great things in our first year marriage. I don't want to push that aside like there weren't good things.
I also think you're learning so much in your first year of marriage. Oh, yeah, honestly.
So anyway, were you guys, sorry, I'm looking at our time. We might break this up into two. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think we could break it up into two.
Let's finish then with this question because it is almost noon.
Yes.
Were you guys in your marriage, the first year of your marriage, were you guys always great at communicating your wants and desires?
Ooh, girl. I was not a great communicator because I grew up as a scream and yell and throw a fit communicator. And unfortunately, I used that to my advantage sometimes. Like I used a little bit of manipulation to get what I wanted. Like I would pout. I would sulk if I didn't get my way. It was horrible, Cathy. Like I'm almost embarrassed talking about it.
Sorry, I'm just imagining you pouting.
Oh, girl. Ask Chad after we're done recording this how I pouted.
Go on.
You know, it was horrible. And then in our anger podcast, we talked about, I think one of the questions was like, how did we deal with our anger? I would literally, if I got really angry or like I didn't agree with what he said, I would just get so angry and just chunk stuff at him. Keys. I remember throwing a cookie sheet at him. It was horrible. I'm like, even just talking about it now, I'm like, I think I asked Chad just recently, how in the world did you just love me so much to deal with some of the baggage that I brought to our marriage? And I was not great at communicating. And then like you, because I grew up in a home where you never apologized for anything that you did. You just let it go and go on with life. My husband would always be the one like, okay, you need to talk to me. Like why are you so angry? And I would sulk so badly and just let the anger just seep in me that I would not communicate to him why I was angry about something or something that was bothering me. He knows me well enough to know like my body language or like the way I answer him and my tone of voice. He's like, Ellen, what's wrong? Are they looking through the window?
No. Sorry, I'm listening. I was just thinking they're about to tell us, y'all need to be done.
Oh, please.
Anyway, go on.
Anyways, I was horrible at communicating. Yeah. Like my first 8 to 10 years of marriage. Yeah. I mean, and I slowly I have been working through my anger, my patience, and the Lord is like revealing to me just like, when you look through your childhood and you look through some of the things that you've been through, why I feel the way that I did and why I communicated. And no, we were not good communicators because a lot of times it was me that just wouldn't communicate. What about you?
Oh, girl. If my red hair didn't give you a warning flag to run.
Ginger. Yes.
I was interesting character because of my upbringing.
Yeah.
I would have times where I would be so full of rage and anger. I would throw keys at my spouse.
Yeah.
Or I remember one evening I made I grew up eating casserole.
Yeah.
Like my mom would make casserole dishes like chicken pie, pot pie, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Jason hates casserole of any kind except breakfast casserole.
Yeah.
And he came home and took 2 bites of something that I worked so hard on.
Oh.
I was so mad.
Yeah.
I took that thing and threw it outside. I was like, fine, you don't want this? And threw it outside. It's like, whoa. I would say that I'm also really, God has really grown me in this and convicted me and sanctified me in this quite a bit, but I still have to fight through it. If I get full of, if I let anger control me and I get wrathful and vengeful, I start saying really awful things.
Me too.
Just terrible things. Why did you say that? What is wrong with you?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I've been doing this year is learning and studying about letting your speech be full of grace and
I love
and
that.
control.
Yeah.
And some of why I'm studying that is because I'm seeing it come out in my older kid. Not my son is very similar to me in that regards. So I'm trying to edify and teach him the things that we say have the power to bring life or death. Yeah. You want to bring life. And so those first few years, no way. I was yelling, I was angry, and I held grudges like you would not believe.
Me too. Like I said, embarrassing stuff that when that question was asked, I'm like, oh.
And I was passive aggressive too. Like Jason, and that's how my what I grew up seeing. I would come in the kitchen and slam doors because something didn't get done right. He's like, is something the matter? I was like, no. He's like, it feels like something's the matter. I'm like, no. Yes, something's the matter. And he was like, can you just communicate that to me? If you can communicate that to me. It's like, oh.
Were we twins?
Starting to feel like
I know. I'm like, oh my gosh, that was me.
I did not handle conflict well. I didn't communicate well.
Yeah.
And I think that all came to a head around year 5 where something has to change.
Yeah.
We both knew divorce in our mind, whatever we can do was not going to be an option.
Yeah. Same with us.
So let's figure out what needs to change. And so that's when he started getting discipled and counseling, and that's when I started getting discipled and counseling, and by God's grace we're still learning.
I think you always learn,
for sure.
Always learn.
He has helped us get to a place of a good place in our marriage. That's not to say we don't have hard days. We still have hard days.
Oh yeah, of course, but yes, beginning of the marriage.
First year,
supports. I'm like, I joke, God, I'm so surprised you didn't divorce me. With some of the issues that I was dealing with. Anyway,
well, let's stop there and then let's finish the rest because there's so many other great questions.
Yes, I like this episode.
I had more questions I wanted to put on here.
Of course.
That's going to be too many. So what I'll do for you guys and for you, Ellen, is see what questions we did do and then make a new list.
Yeah, because we did the first page. So. But y'all, we're excited about this episode because we already recorded How We Met Your Father. And so our husbands will be on here.
Yes, they've agreed. So sometime in the next 2 weeks, probably next week.
Yes.
We're going to do an episode with them. And it's going to be titled How I Met Your Mother. So you'll get to hear their side of the story.
Let's see how much they remember.
Or what weird facts they put in there. They're
like, wait a minute. No, that's not what happened.
Or did that really happen?
Yeah. And then my husband's response is always, I don't know, Ellen, that was 20 years ago. I have no idea. 25 years ago.
Anyway, this was a great discussion.
Yes, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was fun. And thanks for coming for breakfast,
of
too.
Of course. Okay, we might come over more before you move.
Yes. We're trying to get some episodes knocked out before, if and when we move, because it's going to be a little bit of a drive. So we're going to have to figure out some new method of stuff. Yes. Anyway, all of that to say, thank you for joining us this morning. We look forward to this series, and we hope that you like it and are blessed by it. Yes. We hope you guys have a great day. I'm Cathy.
I'm Ellen.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.